I want to talk. Oh, actually, I want to show you guys a quick clip here. Again, I've been away for a little bit, so I apologize to those who have kept up on some of the things that I'm covering today. But um, Jon Stewart obviously fought for the PACT Act. Jon has been all over fighting for health care for veterans and 9/11 responders. This has come up numerous times over the years, where some funding for a program to provide health care to those individuals is being debated in Congress and looks like it's not going to be renewed. And then Jon Stewart comes in and shames the absolute hell out of him, and it's wonderful. I wish he would use that same platform to fight for single payer and a myriad of other things, but I'm certainly not going to attack the guy for taking a good position on a policy and actually affecting change with his celebrity, right? Like he's certainly doing much more than almost everybody who has a platform of his size is doing. So, and Jon, very good at articulating this to those who decide they want to push back on his narrative. So this is Jon Stewart going on Newsmax, believe it or not. And the host on Newsmax tries to frame Republican objections to the PACT Act very disingenuously, and Jon calls him out for it. So this is just a quick clip of Jon Stewart on Newsmax, sort of eviscerating the Newsmax host as it pertains to the PACT Act.
I did want to point out, just to push back a little bit on this, so the Republicans, when you say what you said, they do not support veterans. The Republicans push back saying there is unrelated spending within this.
It's not. It's just not true. What they're saying is they don't like that it's mandatory as opposed to discretionary. There isn't unrelated spending to it. They're saying there could be if there wasn't oversight. But that's what the Senate's job is. The bill itself is incredibly detailed and prescriptive about what it's for. It's about treating and preventing the different conditions that veterans are coming home with, including cancers and chronic bronchiolitis and all these other issues from their exposures in Iraq and Afghanistan. And to push back on what they're saying, what if this creates a slush fund, right? So are you familiar with something called the OCO, the Overseas Contingency Operations Fund?
Fairly, yes.
So every year, $50 billion, $60 billion, $70 billion is added to what's called the OCO on top of the $600 billion, $700 billion, $800 billion that goes to the Defense Department. That OCO fund is actually a slush fund, $60 to $70 billion every year, no oversight, no guardrails. And every one of those Republicans that voted against health care for veterans voted for the slush fund for the war. They don't support the troops. They support the war machine. And that's got to stop. The value in the U.S. military isn't in the toys. It's not in the hardware. It's not in the tanks. It's in the men and women. And until they start supporting them in the manner that they purport to online, they are hypocrites.
It is.
I have always found one of the grossest and most obvious hypocrisies in D.C. to be these politicians that will wear the fucking flag lapel while they're up at a press conference or while they're giving a speech, and then they turn around and vote constantly against like healthcare for veterans or, any other social spending on veterans. We use and abuse young people in the military with the threat of college over their head, quite frankly, most of the time, right? You guys, I'll tell you a quick personal story. I'm sure I've told this before, but to those who haven't heard it, I was, surprise, surprise, expelled from high school for smoking weed. And right after that happened, I got an email from a military recruiter. And when I say right after, you guys, I literally mean the next day, the very next day. I got an email from an Army recruiter wanting to recruit me. I was 17 years old. And fortunately, I knew enough, not nearly not nearly as much as I do now about the military-industrial complex and our egregious foreign policy and all that, but I knew enough to not have any desire to do that and to find the attempt to exploit my situation to be disgusting. So I gave that individual a piece of my mind over that email, but the point is we exploit. We put people in bad financial and life situations with much of our just general social construct, right? Whether it's the prison industrial complex that breaks families up and forces kids into the military and things like that, whether it's the school systems failing us and leaving kids with no choice except to join the military, whether it's economic hardship, where the military becomes one of the only options to make a decent living. And even then, I mean, we underpay soldiers too, but we exploit the shortcomings in our society to recruit people, right? One of the big arguments that we've been with the student debt situation, one of the big arguments against canceling student debt is, well, how would we recruit people to the military if we gave them free college? Yeah, isn't that kind of a condemnation on the military? Not like, hello? Anyway, the point is, I have always found it to be super disgusting how we take advantage of people in shitty situations, young people in shitty situations, to manipulate them into joining the forces. And then when they lose a limb or have PTSD or are otherwise disabled or harmed by their time in the military, we neglect them. We refuse to provide them health care or mental health services. We refuse to help them get a job or housing when they get home. We have a massive problem of homeless vets in this country who suffer from mental health issues or from addiction that really is rooted in their service. So we exploit and use and abuse people and then throw them to the street and tell them to fuck off. And the very people who do this will get up at a fucking podium and put a flag lapel on and pretend they support the troops. I've always found it to be one of the most obvious, overt, in-your-face hypocrisies in all of DC, and that's quite a bar, right? So anyway, I just wanted to take a moment to show you guys that clip because I thought Jon very nicely broke down some of those Republican talking points about it being a slush fund, and that is how you deal with conservative media, by the way. Anyway, good on Jon Stewart for getting a good thing done. You know, I see people on the left that are like, well, why doesn't he do this and that and this and that? Why is it only for veterans? And I mean, guys, I agree. Like, I wish he could fix everything, but are we really going to target the one guy who, like, did a good thing here? It's almost like he's punished for it, right? You do one good thing, and then people, once you're in the news for doing one good thing, people are like, well, why don't you do more? Like, Jon Stewart would have caught less flack if he just didn't even do that, right? No one would have been questioning what he does or doesn't use his platform for if he didn't do that. But then all of a sudden we start, like, fucking condemning the guy. I mean, I'm sorry, I just think it's ridiculous. Yes, do I wish Jon Stewart would use his platform like he just did to fight for single-payer health care or tuition-free college or canceling student debt or housing reform or whatever? Yes, of course I do. Of course I do. But I also think he did a damn good thing, and I'm going to give him props for it instead of condemning him for it, right? I mean, really, think about it, you guys. How many celebrities are there? How many politicians are there? How many people in the news are there that have the kind of platform Jon has and do significantly less with it? And he's a fucking comedian, okay? So anyway, I just wanted to get that off of my chest. This was a good thing. Props to Jon Stewart for it, right?